The abandoned colony. The observation deck of Helios Station offered the most breathtaking view in the entire colony. Through its vast transparent dome, one could see both of Nova Elysium's moons hanging like luminous pearls above rolling emerald forests and sapphire oceans. Yet Security Chief Nikolai Volkov found no beauty in the view today. His eyes were fixed on something else entirely, the holographic projection showing a mass of red dots slowly advancing toward their system. 36 days had passed since they detected the first anomaly. 36 days of desperate pleas for help, of watching neighboring colonies go silent, of waiting for aid that never came. Now their time was running out. Still no response from Confederate command, Communications Officer Talia Okafor reported, her voice hollow with exhaustion. Like Volkov, she hadn't slept properly in weeks. I've tried all channels, even the emergency diplomatic frequencies. Volkov nodded, unsurprised. Keep broadcasting, he ordered, though they both knew it was pointless. The Galactic Confederacy had made its decision. Nova Elysium, with its population of 50,000 colonists from 15 different species, was deemed, regrettably expendable, in the face of the approaching threat. The swarm, as they'd come to call it, had appeared seemingly from nowhere 3 months ago. At first, it was just unusual energy readings at the edge of the sector. Then a mining outpost went dark. Then a research station. Then entire colonies. The pattern was always the same: communications would cut off abruptly, and when investigation teams arrived, they would find nothing but empty structures stripped of all organic matter. How many can we evacuate with our remaining ships? Volkov asked, turning to Operations Director Wei Ming. Wei's expression was grim. At maximum capacity, maybe 7,000. We've prioritized children and those with critical skills, but... Her voice trailed off. They didn't need to state the obvious: more than 40,000 people would be left behind to face whatever was coming. Evacuation Group D is ready to depart, sir, reported Officer Devin Patel, entering the command center with a datapad. That's another 1,200 people who'll make it out. Volkov nodded, the weight of responsibility pressing down on his shoulders. Make sure the distribution is equitable across all species, he instructed. I won't have anyone claiming humans are only saving their own. Though humans represented less than 30% of Nova Elysium's population, rumors had begun spreading that human leadership was prioritizing their own kind. Volkov had implemented public lotteries for evacuation spots, but fear made people believe the worst. Sir. Okafor suddenly straightened at her station. I'm picking up something on long-range scanners. Volkov moved quickly to her side, heart sinking. Had the swarm accelerated beyond their predictions? Show me. The main screen flickered to life, displaying the vast emptiness of space punctuated by hundreds of bright points arranged in precise formation. But these weren't the organic, asymmetrical shapes of swarm vessels. These ships were geometric, armored, and unmistakably artificial in design. That's a military fleet, Wei whispered, eyes wide. But the Confederacy doesn't have that many warships in this entire sector. Magnify, Volkov ordered, and the image zoomed in on one of the larger vessels. His breath caught as he recognized the insignia, a stylized Earth globe overlaid with a silver sword and shield. That's an Earth Defense Force fleet, he said, disbelief evident in his voice. What are they doing here? Earth had joined the Galactic Confederacy 70 years ago, but had always maintained an uneasy relationship with the other member species. Humans came from what was classified as a Class 12 Death World, a planet so naturally hostile that it produced unusually resilient and adaptable species. The Treaty of Olympus strictly limited human military vessels to defensive purposes within Earth's solar system and immediate colonies. Yet here they were, hundreds of warships bearing Earth's insignia, appearing as if from nowhere in Nova Elysium's hour of greatest need. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Earth fleet, Okafor reported, her voice now alive with hope. Audio only. Put it through, Volkov ordered. A woman's voice, calm and commanding, filled the command center. Nova Elysium Colony, this is Fleet Admiral Jihan Zhou of the Earth Defense Force flagship Intrepid. We received your distress call and have arrived to provide immediate military assistance. Please transmit all data you have on the approaching swarm forces. Prepare for arrival of ground support units within the hour. For a moment, the command center was silent, the implications of the message sinking in. Then Volkov found his voice. This is Security Chief Nikolai Volkov of Nova Elysium. Admiral Zhou, we're grateful for your arrival, but... He hesitated, hardly believing what he was asking. What exactly are your intentions here? The reply came without hesitation. Our intentions are to fight, Chief Volkov. Earth protects its people. Volkov exchanged looks with his officers, none of them having expected this. The Confederacy had written off Nova Elysium as a tragic but unavoidable loss, yet here was Earth, supposedly a minor power, sending a battle fleet larger than anything they had seen before. Sir, Patel said quietly, they didn't come to evacuate us. Volkov nodded slowly, a strange feeling growing in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it as something he hadn't felt in weeks: hope. No, he agreed, watching as the Earthships moved into defensive formation around their world. They came to fight. In the hours that followed, the colony transformed. The paralysis of fear gave way to purposeful activity as Earth Marines in powered combat armor landed and began establishing defensive positions. Evacuation plans shifted to defense preparations as engineers unloaded equipment and weapons from Earth supply ships. By nightfall, Volkov found himself aboard a shuttle heading toward the EDF Intrepid to meet with Admiral Zhou. The massive vessel stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull bearing the scars of previous battles. Unlike the sleek, artistic ships of the Confederacy, Earth vessels were built purely for function, not beauty. Lieutenant Commander Gabriel Rios, Volkov's escort, noticed his interest. The Intrepid has seen more than her share of combat, he explained. She was at the Battle of Tau Ceti and led the defense during the Proxima incident. I thought Earth hadn't engaged in any major military operations since joining the Confederacy, Volkov said, surprised. Rios smiled thinly. That's what the Confederacy prefers to believe. The Treaty of Olympus limits our official military activities, but it has flexibility when it comes to defensive operations. They arrived at the command deck where Admiral Zhou waited. She was a tall woman with short silver hair and penetrating dark eyes that seemed to evaluate everything they fell upon. Her uniform was simple but immaculate, bearing only a few discreet insignia of rank. Chief Volkov, she greeted him, extending a hand in the human custom. Welcome aboard the Intrepid. Admiral Zhou, Volkov replied, taking her hand. I must express the colony's gratitude for your arrival, but I have many questions. I imagine you do, Zhou nodded, gesturing to a seat at the briefing table. Let's start with the most important ones. Yes, we came to fight. No, we're not just here for the humans. Yes, Earth is aware this violates certain provisions of the Treaty of Olympus. No, we don't care. Volkov blinked, surprised by her directness. How did you even receive our distress call? We're over 50 light-years from Earth. Zhou activated a holographic display showing a small research vessel. The EDF Hawking was testing experimental FTL communication technology in the adjacent sector. They intercepted your signal 3 weeks ago and relayed it to Earth Command. We dispatched the fleet immediately. 3 weeks. Volkov couldn't keep the bitterness from his voice. The Confederacy Council has been deliberating whether to send aid for twice that long. The Confederacy debates. Earth acts, Zhou stated simply, changing the display to show the approaching swarm. Now, I need everything you have on these creatures: scans, observations, patterns of attack, everything. Volkov hesitated. I can't share Confederacy intelligence with Earth forces. That would violate Colonial Security Protocol 42.7. The same protocol that requires the Confederacy to provide military support to colonies under direct threat. Zhou finished for him, one eyebrow raised. Chief Volkov, look around you. Your own government has abandoned Nova Elysium. They've written off 50,000 lives as an acceptable loss. We are your only hope, and we need to know what we're fighting. Volkov stared at her, understanding the choice before him: share classified information with Earth, violating Confederacy regulations, or withhold it and potentially doom the colony. The Confederacy will court-martial me for this, he said quietly. Zhou's expression softened slightly. Only if they win. And only if anyone tells them. After a moment, Volkov reached into his uniform pocket and removed a data crystal. This contains everything we've observed about the swarm: 3 months of scans, attack patterns, biological analysis from recovered specimens. Our scientists have been studying them since they first appeared in this sector. Zhou took the crystal, her eyes showing respect. Thank you, Chief. This will save lives. It better, Volkov replied, because I just committed treason to get it to you. The Admiral inserted the crystal into a reader, and immediately the holographic display changed to show detailed scans of swarm vessels and creatures. Zhou studied them with intense focus. They're not a single species, she observed. They're a collective, multiple species working together like a superorganism. That's our theory, Volkov nodded. They share a hive mind somehow. Kill enough of them and the rest become disorganized, but only temporarily. And their numbers are overwhelming. Numbers alone don't win battles, Zhou said firmly, not against a prepared enemy. She called up another image showing the interior structure of a swarm ship. Their vessels are partially organic. That gives them an advantage in self-repair, but also makes them vulnerable to certain types of attacks. For the next hour, they analyzed the data together. Volkov was impressed by the Admiral's quick understanding and tactical insights. She asked questions no Confederacy officer had thought to ask, looking for weaknesses and patterns others had missed. As their meeting concluded, Zhou walked Volkov back to the shuttle bay. My Marines will coordinate with your security forces. We'll begin deploying defense systems immediately. The swarm arrives in approximately 60 hours, we have much to prepare. Do you really think we can win? Volkov asked, finally voicing the question that had been on his mind since the Earth fleet arrived. Zhou's answer was simple but resolute: the swarm has never faced humans in significant numbers before. They've never fought Deathworlders. They evolved to consume. We evolved to survive. We'll show them the difference. As Volkov prepared to return to the colony, Zhou added one more thing: there's something you should understand about humans, Chief. The Confederacy calls Earth a death world because our planet tried to kill us at every turn. We learned to fight not because we wanted to, but because we had to. When something threatens our survival or the survival of those we protect, we don't run. We stand our ground. As his shuttle departed, Volkov looked back at the Earth fleet spread across space, hundreds of warships standing guard over a colony that even its own government had abandoned. For the first time since the crisis began, he allowed himself to believe that Nova Elysium might survive. The battle for Nova Elysium was about to begin. The battle begins. Lieutenant Priya Sharma wiped sweat from her forehead as she finished calibrating the last defense turret. Nova Elysium's twin suns beat down mercilessly, making her powered combat armor uncomfortably hot despite its cooling systems. She had been working non-stop for 18 hours, but there was no time to rest. The swarm would arrive in less than 2 days. Power connection complete, she reported, stepping back to examine her work. The heavy plasma cannon was one of 30 such weapons her engineering team had installed around the colony's main settlement. They weren't elegant, Earth technology rarely was, but they would deliver devastating firepower when needed. Will it be enough? Asked Xin, one of the colony's engineers who had been assisting her team. He was a Centaurian, taller than most humans with iridescent skin that shifted colors with his mood. Currently, it displayed a mottled pattern of anxious grays and blues. Sharma checked the weapon's targeting system before answering. By itself? No. Nothing is enough against the swarm. But it's part of a larger plan. She pointed toward the hills where other teams were setting up larger weapons. Those are mass drivers. They'll launch kinetic projectiles into orbit at extreme speeds. And up there, she pointed to the sky where Earth ships moved in formation, they're placing mines and preparing ship-based weapons. It's all connected. Xin looked unconvinced. The Confederacy says the swarm can't be beaten, that their numbers are too great. Sharma snorted. The Confederacy says a lot of things. She began packing up her tools. We've been in situations like this before, fighting when others said it was hopeless. It's kind of our specialty. As they walked back toward the command center, Xin asked the question that many colonists had been wondering: why did you come? Earth has no formal alliance with Nova Elysium. Most of us aren't even human. Sharma looked at him thoughtfully. There are humans here. That would have been enough. But Admiral Zhou made it clear, this isn't just about protecting humans. To risk your entire battle fleet. Earth is different, she explained. Most species in the Confederacy evolved in peaceful environments. We evolved while being hunted. It changes your perspective. Xin considered this. The death world thing. That's why humans are willing to fight battles others run from. Sharma smiled. We don't know how to give up. Sometimes that's our greatest weakness. Today, it might be your colony's greatest hope. In orbit above Nova Elysium, Admiral Zhou was holding a final briefing with her ship captains. The holographic display showed the positions of every Earth vessel, the colony below, and the approaching swarm. The swarm will arrive in 36 hours, she told the assembled officers. Based on Chief Volkov's data and our own analysis, we expect their force to consist of approximately 4,000 vessels of various sizes. Captain Darius Jackson of the EDF Valiant whispered a low curse. That's more than 4-to-1 odds against us. Zhou nodded. Conventional wisdom says they can't be beaten. The Confederacy strategy is evacuation and containment, let them have what they want and hope they move on. Her expression hardened. But we're not the Confederacy. We evolved on a death world where everything tried to kill us. We know what it means to fight for survival. She expanded the tactical display. The swarm has never encountered humans in significant numbers before. They don't know what we're capable of, and that gives us an advantage. Her plan was bold. Instead of attempting to defend the colony directly, they would use it as bait, drawing the swarm into a carefully prepared trap where Earth ships could leverage their superior firepower. Phase 1, Zhou continued, highlighting sections of space around Nova Elysium. We've placed cloaked antimatter mines throughout these approach vectors. When the swarm enters the system, they'll hit these first. Captain Lena Ortega of the EDF Thunderchild raised a hand. Won't they detect the mines? Not according to the data, Zhou replied. The swarm relies primarily on biological sensors, they detect life energy emissions and heat. Our mines emit neither. They should be invisible until they detonate. She moved to the next phase of the plan. Once the initial wave is disrupted, our fleet will emerge from hiding behind Nova Elysium's outer moon. Our rail guns and kinetic weapons will target their larger vessels. Based on Volkov's data, the swarm's biological hulls are highly resistant to energy weapons but vulnerable to physical impacts. The captains nodded. This matched what they had observed in previous, smaller encounters. Meanwhile, Zhou continued, ground-based mass drivers will create a barrier of hypervelocity projectiles in low orbit, preventing smaller swarm ships from landing. For those that make it through, we have marine units and defense turrets positioned around the colony. Finally, she revealed the most daring part of the plan. For Phase 3, we've converted 20 unmanned freighters into giant bombs, loaded with experimental fusion devices. When the swarm commits their full force, we'll lure them into position and detonate these ships, which should eliminate a significant portion of their fleet. The room was silent as the captains absorbed the plan. Questions? Zhou asked. Jackson spoke first. Admiral, with respect, this is unlike any battle plan the EDF has ever implemented. The risk to our fleet is acceptable compared to the alternative, Zhou finished for him. If the swarm takes Nova Elysium, they'll have a foothold in this sector. The next colony is just 12 light-years away with a population of over 120,000. After that, they have a clear path to 4 more human settlements. She looked around the room. We stop them here, or we fight an even worse battle later. I don't see another option. Do you? No one offered an alternative. Good. Return to your ships and prepare your crews. Dismissed. As the captains filed out, Volkov entered the briefing room. He had watched the presentation from the back. That's your plan. Use the colony as bait. Zhou met his gaze. It gives us the best chance of success. And if it fails, if the swarm breaks through, then we move to emergency evacuation and hold them off as long as possible. And you think this will work? Volkov pressed. Zhou's voice was calm but resolute. The swarm has never faced a united human defense force. They've picked off isolated colonies or fought Confederacy peacekeeping ships. They've never fought humans who came ready for war. Volkov considered this. The confidence of the Earth forces was unlike anything he had seen in the Confederacy military. They weren't just following orders, they believed they could win. Your people are preparing like they've done this before, he observed. Zhou's smile was grim. Humans have been fighting desperate battles since before we left Earth. Our history is full of smaller forces defeating larger ones through strategy, sacrifice, and sheer stubbornness. It's in our blood. On the surface, Sharma led her team to their next assignment, rigging the colony's main bridge with explosives as a last resort if the swarm broke through. As they worked, colonists were being organized into emergency response teams. Those who couldn't fight were moved to secure bunkers or prepared for possible evacuation. The colony that had been paralyzed with fear just days ago now hummed with purpose. Human Marines worked alongside colony security forces, teaching them tactics for fighting the swarm up close. Aim for the central nerve cluster, a Marine sergeant explained to a group of colony guards, pointing to a diagram of a swarm warrior. Energy weapons don't work well against their outer shell, but physical projectiles will penetrate. If you don't have guns, use blades or clubs, anything that can crush or pierce. Sharma watched as the colonists listened intently. Many were species the Confederacy considered naturally peaceful, evolved on safe worlds without predators or many natural threats. Yet here they were, learning to fight. Will they be ready? Zin asked, joining her again. Sharma shrugged. Ready or not, the fight is coming. But having a chance is better than having none. Around them, the colony transformed. Buildings became fortified positions, streets were rigged with traps for ground forces, civilians learned emergency protocols. In orbit, Earth's fleet finished their preparations, ships moved into hiding positions, weapons were charged, crews rested as much as possible before the coming battle. On the Intrepid's bridge, Admiral Zhou watched the final pieces of her plan fall into place. The swarm was now just 24 hours away. Soon they would learn what it meant to face Deathworlders in battle. Earth hadn't sent aid to Nova Elysium. They hadn't sent evacuation ships. They had sent their fleet, and with it a message to the galaxy: humans protected their own and anyone under their protection, no matter the odds. They're here. The words echoed through the command center as Nova Elysium's long-range sensors detected the first wave of swarm ships entering the system. Volkov stood beside Admiral Zhou on the bridge of the Intrepid, watching as the enemy appeared on the main display, a vast cloud of organic vessels that seemed to darken space itself. So many, Volkov whispered. Even after days of preparation, the sight was terrifying. Zhou's face remained calm. Numbers aren't everything. She turned to her communications officer. All ships maintain communication silence. Weapon systems on standby. The Earth fleet was hidden behind Nova Elysium's outer moon, invisible to the approaching swarm. On the planet below, defense systems were ready but dormant, emitting no energy signatures that might give away their positions. The swarm moved closer, following exactly the path Zhou had predicted. They ignored standard communication attempts and headed directly toward the colony just as they had done in previous attacks. They're approaching the mine field, reported Tactical Officer Hernandez, her voice tense. Zhou nodded. Stand by. For several agonizing minutes, nothing happened. Then, suddenly, space lit up as the first mines detonated. Brilliant flashes of antimatter reactions tore through the leading edge of the swarm, vaporizing dozens of vessels instantly. Direct hits. Hernandez called out. Swarm formation disrupted, but they're continuing their advance. Zhou's expression remained impassive. As expected. They don't retreat. Phase 2, all ships, move to attack positions. Target the largest vessels with kinetic weapons. The Earth fleet emerged from hiding, accelerating toward the now disorganized swarm. Railguns fired, launching hypervelocity projectiles that tore through the biological hulls of the larger swarm ships. On the surface, Sharma activated the colony's defense systems. Mass drivers along the perimeter began firing into low orbit, creating a deadly barrier of metal slugs that shredded smaller swarm vessels attempting to descend. They're adapting, Volkov noted, watching as the swarm began to reorganize, changing their approach vector to avoid the heaviest concentrations of Earth fire. Also expected, Zhou replied. They learn quickly. But so do we. She turned to her communications officer. Transmit pattern Omega. All ships, execute evasive protocol. The Earth fleet suddenly changed formation, splitting into smaller battle groups that attacked from multiple vectors, confusing the swarm's collective intelligence. For a time, it seemed the plan was working perfectly. The swarm's numerical advantage was neutralized by superior human tactics and technology. Then things began to go wrong. Admiral. Hernandez called out. A second swarm force is entering the system from Sector 7. Zhou's eyes narrowed. This was unexpected. How many? At least 2,000 additional vessels. Volkov paled. They're coordinating. This has never happened before. Zhou processed this new information rapidly. They're evolving their tactics. Interesting. She studied the tactical display, quickly adjusting her plan. Deploy the freighter bombs now. Target the junction between the two swarm forces. But Admiral, her executive officer protested, that's premature. Phase 3 was meant for. The situation has changed, Commander. We adapt or we die. Zhou's voice was calm but brooked no argument. Execute the order. The converted freighters, previously hidden among debris fields, activated their engines and moved toward the gap between the two swarm forces. The swarm, sensing new prey, moved to intercept. They're taking the bait, Hernandez reported. Detonate on my mark, Zhou ordered. She waited until the maximum number of swarm vessels surrounded the freighters. Mark. Space erupted in a series of blinding explosions as the fusion devices detonated simultaneously. When the light faded, nearly a third of the swarm forces had been vaporized. Direct hit. Hernandez called out, unable to keep the excitement from her voice. But Zhou wasn't celebrating. The remaining swarm vessels are still advancing. They're dispersing to minimize casualties from further explosions. Volkov watched in dismay as the swarm, though badly damaged, continued its relentless approach toward the colony. They're still coming. Even after all that. Of course they are, Zhou replied. That's what makes them dangerous. She activated a ship-wide channel. All hands, prepare for close engagement. This is now a battle of attrition. In the hours that followed, the battle descended into chaos. Earthships fought with a ferocity that stunned even Volkov. When their primary weapons were depleted, they rammed smaller swarm vessels. When ships were damaged beyond repair, their crews set them on collision courses with swarm concentrations. On the surface, Sharma and her marines fought alongside colony defenders as swarm warriors breached the perimeter. The streets of the main settlement became a battleground, with hand-to-hand combat in some sectors. Yet somehow, impossibly, the humans were holding their ground. For every Earthship destroyed, dozens of swarm vessels were eliminated. For every marine that fell, scores of swarm warriors were killed. Why won't they retreat? Volkov asked, watching as another wave of swarm ships was decimated by Earth's remaining defenses. Because they've never needed to before, Zhou replied. They've never faced an enemy that refused to yield. As the battle entered its 10th hour, even Zhou began to show signs of fatigue. The Earth fleet had been reduced to less than half its original size. The colony's defenses were failing. It seemed the swarm's overwhelming numbers would eventually prevail. Then Tactical Officer Hernandez noticed something strange. Admiral, the swarm's attack pattern is becoming erratic. Their coordination is breaking down. Zhou studied the display, noticing the same thing. The hive mind is struggling to maintain control. We've killed enough of them to disrupt their neural network. Hope sparked in Volkov's eyes. Like a fever breaking. Exactly, Zhou nodded. This is our moment. All ships, concentrate fire on these coordinates. She highlighted several points in the swarm formation. Target what appear to be command nodes. The remaining Earth vessels focused their attacks on the designated targets. For several tense minutes, nothing seemed to change. Then, abruptly, the swarm began to fragment. Small groups broke away, their movements chaotic and uncoordinated. It's working, Volkov breathed. Press the advantage, Zhou ordered. Don't give them time to reorganize. Earth's remaining ships and ground forces attacked with renewed vigor, systematically destroying the now disorganized swarm vessels. Without their collective intelligence to guide them, the individual swarm units were far less effective. 3 hours later, it was over. The remnants of the swarm retreated into deep space, too few to pose a threat and too damaged to continue fighting. In the colony's main plaza, humans and aliens alike gathered to celebrate their unlikely victory. The cost had been high, nearly a third of the Earth fleet destroyed, hundreds of marines lost, parts of the colony in ruins, but Nova Elysium had survived. Admiral Zhou and Chief Volkov stood on the Intrepid's observation deck, looking down at the recovering colony. The Confederacy Council has requested an emergency meeting, Volkov informed her. They're not happy about Earth's unauthorized military action in Confederate space. Zhou's smile held no humor. I imagine they're not. They're also demanding explanations for Earth's apparent violation of the Treaty of Olympus. And yet, strangely, they've managed to send 3 diplomatic cruisers when they couldn't spare a single ship to help defend the colony, Zhou observed dryly. Volkov sighed. Politics. Always. Zhou turned to face him. What will you tell them? Volkov considered the question carefully. The truth. That when everyone else abandoned us, Earth came to fight. That humans stood their ground when the Confederacy chose to run. He paused. I think the galaxy needs to understand what it means to have Death Worlders as allies, and what it would mean to have them as enemies. Zhou nodded, satisfied. Earth protects its own, Chief Volkov. Today, that included Nova Elysium. As dawn broke over the colony, the Earth fleet prepared to depart. They left behind defense systems, engineers to help rebuild, and a new understanding between humans and the other species of Nova Elysium. They also left a message for the galaxy at large: underestimate humanity at your peril. They had evolved on a world that tried to kill them at every turn, and it had taught them not just how to survive, but how to fight for those under their protection. The Death Worlders had revealed themselves, and the galaxy would never be the same.